And new tonight at 11, a bipartisan breakthrough as the Senate ends 3 decades of congressional gridlock on this country's gun laws. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Laurel Porter. The vote wasn't even close, with 65 senators, including 15 Republicans, approving the changes. In the end, the bill was a compromise, which meant several of Democrats' key proposals, including bans on assault-style rifles and high-capacity magazines, were scrapped entirely. One of the most significant changes, though, that passed, tightening of background checks for those convicted of domestic violence or of significant crimes as juveniles. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said it wasn't a cure-all, but, quote, long overdue, while Republican Mitch McConnell voted yes, calling it a, quote, common sense package. President Biden reacting to the news with a statement saying, quote, families in Uvalde and Buffalo and too many tragic shootings before have demanded action. And tonight, we acted. This bipartisan legislation will help protect Americans, end quote. The bill heads to the House on Friday.
And case in point of how divided this country remains when it comes to gun control and gun safety. Earlier Thursday, the Supreme Court struck down a New York law related to concealed weapons. Now, in a 6-3 decision, the majority ruled the law, which required people to demonstrate a special need to obtain a license to carry, as unconstitutional. New York's governor, a Democrat, called that ruling reckless and outrageous and said the state is reviewing its options. Here's the mayor of New York City.
The Supreme Court hands down a decision that basically states our job is going to get harder.
We should also note that the Supreme Court could hand down another closely watched opinion, one related to abortion, that could potentially overturn Roe v. Wade. That could come as soon as tomorrow. Well, in other news tonight is Mo was stealing meat and seafood, and he became such a prolific shoplifter in the Portland area. Detectives gave him a special nickname.
And tonight, the Hamburglar is headed to prison for 4 years. As Kylie Boshi explains, retailers and police point to his case as an example of how the system is broken.
One of Portland's most prolific shoplifters, Barry Sanders, was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Detectives nicknamed Sanders the Hamburglar several years ago after catching him stealing meat and seafood from Portland area stores. Prosecutor Kevin Deemer warned Sanders will never change.
We build prisons for people like him.
The 60-year-old pleaded guilty to a felony theft charge after shoplifting from Fred Meyer in 2021. He also admitted violating probation after agreeing to stay out of stores he stole from, including Fred Meyer, Safeway, Target, Winco, and Home Depot. Previously, Sanders confessed in court papers he shoplifted more than 1,000 times from Portland area stores.
The only time he's not committing crimes is when he's in prison. That's for the last 10 years.
A KGW investigation in 2017 found retailers and police frustrated by a flawed system that allows shoplifters to reoffend without facing serious consequences. Sanders' criminal history helped illustrate the problem.
Would you say you're a professional thief?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I know the law and I know the rules, that I know what I can and what I can't do.
In this police interview from 2016, Sanders admitted to a detective he'd figured out how to work the system.
Here's when I get out of prison, detective. I steal. So you can send me back to prison again. Oh well. I get out again.
Portland retailers, big and small, have complained about the citywide problem of shoplifting. According to Portland police data, in the first 4 months of this year, there have been more than 1,300 shoplifting cases. That's an increase over the same period last year when there were 970 cases. Those losses impact customers with higher prices and put employees at risk. During sentencing, Sanders blamed his shoplifting on a drug addiction.
I'm Barry Sanders, and I'm not a violent whatever. I just suffer from addiction. That's it. That's all.
The judge responded, there are a lot of other drug addicts that don't steal, before sentencing Sanders to 4 years in prison. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Well, tonight, the I-5 Rose Quarter expansion plan may be getting a bit of a shot in the arm.
After months on the sidelines, the city of Portland appears ready to rejoin the project. During a city council meeting this week, the city of Portland announced it would be moving forward with support for the Hybrid 3 option, which, among other things, calls for parts of the freeway to be capped. This paves the way for developable land to reconnect the historically black Albina neighborhood. Some believe it's a step in the right direction, while others think it's just a temporary solution.
Any lessening of congestion will be short-lived and they'll be as bad as ever, but with more lanes of it.
We believe that transportation should heal and connect, that children should be safe in the city core, that the urban fabric should be repaired, stolen wealth should be restored, and we need to build for the future.
The City Council will make this all official with a vote in the coming days. From there, the council is scheduled to reevaluate everything in the summer of 2024.
Nurses have voted to reject a potential contract following negotiations between the Oregon Nurses Association and Providence St. Vincent. The union in Providence reached a tentative agreement earlier this month, but this vote means they're going to have to go back to the bargaining table. Key demands from nurses include higher pay and improved staffing levels. The union has been negotiating for about 8 months now.
And tonight, one person was sent to the hospital after being hurt when a light pole fell on them. This happened at Irving Park in Northeast Portland. Portland police believe a caretaker and a child were sitting on a hammock between a light pole and a tree when the pole came down. They say a male juvenile was sent to the hospital and was seriously hurt. We reached out to Parks and Rec for comment and are waiting to hear back.
Pretty scary situation
Sure
there.
is.
Tonight, Asian Americans in Portland gathered to discuss a rise in crime and violence against businesses in Southeast neighborhoods.
They're hoping to find solutions and stand up against anti-Asian hate. Our Alma McCarty has the story.
Thursday afternoon, a call to action.
We're going to talk about some issue, some crime issue facing our community.
Asian Americans in Southeast Portland say they're facing attacks and worse.
Never face this kind of so much hatred toward the Asian.
The Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, which hosted this community meeting, say some of the violence targets the same Asian-owned businesses again and again.
We hear the outcry from the owner of this house secret restaurant that they've been poking it again.
Even though this is a petty crime, but we need to stop it.
Community members were frustrated.
I appreciate that you guys come help us, but I want to hear from you guys what you guys going to do in the future. How can you guys helping us?
About crime, one man said through a translator that's become all too common.
One time, somebody come in and use the electric saw to cut the ATM machine and then take all the money inside the machine. It's so difficult to survive.
And he adds he was recently robbed at gunpoint. His son, overcome with emotion, describing that call from his dad.
I didn't personally experience it, but to have my father experience it just last night, it's heartbroken.
Business owners hoping to stop the cycle and hoping this particular plea to police will help law enforcement understand the toll these crimes are taking on this community.
These just aren't concerning, they're disturbing to us too as far as law enforcement. We got into these professions because we want to bring justice and voice to victims and those who otherwise would not be able to speak.
In Portland, Alma McCarty, KGW News.
That is so disturbing, but good to hear their voices about that. New relief is on the way for low-income workers in Oregon. Back in March, lawmakers approved a one-time $600 stimulus payment to residents who claim the Earned Income Tax Credit in 2020. About 236,000 households are eligible. Payments are limited to one per household, and the money should arrive via direct deposit or by mail no later than July 1st.
Well, let's talk about our homeless crisis and something you may not have considered before. Garbage and tents making daily life an absolute struggle for some people living with disabilities. Blair Best talked to neighbors in Northeast Portland who say they can't get down their own sidewalks.
refrigerators, washers, dryers, stoves, a tent.
Pauline Long lists off what blocks this sidewalk outside her apartment on the corner of Northeast 14th and Weidler. She's 66 years old and uses a wheelchair. About 4 months ago, this homeless camp moved in, making it nearly impossible for her to get by.
And there's no room. If you're in a wheelchair, you need at least, to safely get by, at least a 3-foot path.
The American Disabilities Act federally mandates sidewalks to be clear and at least 3 feet wide, especially for those who use wheelchairs. It also requires communities maintain sidewalks in accordance with that law. According to a 2018 federal ruling, the city of Portland cannot prosecute homeless people for sleeping on the streets if they have nowhere else to go. But the city's Street Services Coordination Center prioritizes removing camps like this one, since it blocks ADA access.
They now have taken the street since March. Nobody's done anything, so they're just going to sit there and make it worse and worse.
The city declined to talk with us on camera, but tells KGW this camp was posted for removal this week. That's 4 months after they moved in.
Just trying to eat and survive. That's all I'm trying to do.
Tom is 62 years old and lives on this block with his girlfriend and son.
It's like to me that she's picking on us because she sees that we're living on the street.
He grew up in Portland and has been to prison 19 times.
All this stuff that's on the block here, I carried. It's not stolen. It's stuff that was in the garbage or by the garbage that people were throwing out, and I'm going to turn it in for metal so I can get some money.
You know, I understand their situation, and we're trying to work with them in the area. But if they're not willing to work with us and give us our access to the sidewalk, I shouldn't have to go in the street for them and risk my life.
It's very scary, and it's making us feel very limited.
Marja Byers is legally blind and uses a guide dog.
Forward.
She oftentimes has to walk in the street to avoid tents and garbage.
That means my dog is out closest to oncoming cars, and I'm not willing to risk my guide dog.
Even when the sidewalks are cleared, she says it's not dependable.
Some camps get cleaned out. People have got to go somewhere. So it's kind of ongoing, but where it's going to pop up next, it's a mystery. Part of what I would like city officials to really understand is how much this impedes our freedom.
That's a really interesting take we had not seen before. Blair Best reporting there. If you see a blocked sidewalk, the city is asking you to report it through PDX Reporter. The city says they look into each and every report. We also reached out to several disability rights organizations, but none of them wanted to speak publicly about this issue.